I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bolin,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Kimmelshoe, Commissioner McGreehan,
Here.
Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Betts, Chair Connolly,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Rust,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Bradley,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Ritter, alternate Commissioner Shepherd. Thank you.
Next up is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull something from the consent agenda? Well, the minutes. Any changes? I'll entertain a
I move
motion.
approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor say. Do I have to-
Aye.
Aye. Do I have to call roll? Supposed to, right?
Commissioner Bolin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Rust. Thank you.
Okay, next up, 3.1, it's under notice public hearing, Community Services District in Butte County. Public review, draft municipal service review and sphere of influences plans update.
Right. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Connolly and Commission. I will give a brief presentation on this. Hopefully it won't take up too much time, but this is the MSR Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Update plans for community service districts in Butte County. So this presentation will go through the legal requirements under Cortese Knox, talk about the MSR process, the districts that we're focused on, identify common challenges, and then, of course, my recommendations. So I won't go too in depth in this because we're coming off the heels of our LAFCo 101. And so I know you're all experts in municipal service reviews, but this is government code. And we're working under the framework of Cortese Knox, which provides that municipal service reviews are to be done every 5 years as needed. And the purpose of the MSR is to evaluate the services provided by our districts, focusing on their governance, service efficiency, financial stability. We'll use the MSR as a tool in our future to inform our future decisions and, of course, to inform any sphere of influence updates, amendments that could come in the future. And then I did include CSD law under Government Code Section 61,000. These CSDs that are evaluated in the Municipal Service Review were formed under this code section that essentially allows unincorporated communities to establish a localized service provider where the larger municipality does not meet their needs. And it's designed to help these rural communities establish essential public services such as water, wastewater, roads. They can provide a menu of services in these CSDs. So for the MSR process, I started out by reaching out to the districts to let them know that we would be updating their municipal service review. I had in-depth conversations with a representative from each of the districts, and they were all super cooperative, very helpful, interested in the process. So they learned a lot as well. I visited all 3 of the districts and got to see the services that they provide. I compiled the draft version of the municipal service review using firstly the previous municipal service review for Richardson Springs and Berry Creek that was adopted in 2006. And the Buzztail Community Service District had a municipal service review update in 2016. Like I said, oral interviews gave me tons of information. I used reports that were provided by each of the districts, including adopted budgets, audits, financial statements, any sort of like document that was specific to their district. And then those district representatives, if they didn't have the information, they were super helpful in putting me in touch with somebody who did. So that was nice. I compiled the first draft of the municipal service review and distributed that to the districts for their input. So if there was any data errors, that's what I wanted to know from them. And then the draft document was circulated for a period a little bit longer than 21 days. 21 days is our what we're supposed to, it's mandated in the government code. This one circulated for closer to about 30 days, and we did receive 2 public comments. One from Butte County Fire, CAL FIRE, which is incorporated into the document that you received for review. And then you would have yesterday received the comment received from Menasian Law Firm on behalf of the Lake Madrone Water District. I talk a little bit more about the comment received from Butte County CAL FIRE is just to clarify that services provided by the Buzztail Community Service District, they wanted specific language that they don't provide fire prevention services. CAL FIRE does that. Buzztail more specifically provides mitigation services through vegetation management. So that's included in the draft document that you received, and you should have seen like the red line version of that. The comment received on behalf of Lake Madrone Water District advocates for cooperation over consolidation amongst the 2 districts, but I don't feel like the letter warranted any changes to the document as it's drafted. So key challenges, before I go into the actual districts, we'll talk about some of the key challenges that were identified amongst the 3. First being financial constraints. They each operate on a very limited budget with limited revenue resources, whether that be a parcel assessment, user fees, or in the case of Richardson Springs, they're funded solely through YWAM, which is the owner of the district and the parcel. They each operate using aging infrastructure. They were all formed back in the 80s and 90s, and so their infrastructure is approaching 40 and 50 years old, and it makes it more expensive to upkeep. They all have different varying issues with governance, whether it be they can't keep a full board, their district population was reduced, or in the case of Richardson Springs, they are what is considered a transient population. So people cycle in and out. So they have a tough time maintaining continuity. And then, of course, they're all geographically isolated, located in the eastern foothills of Butte County. This makes it difficult to collaborate with other districts, makes repairs and services and costs much more expensive. And then, of course, their customers kind of vary, especially these days with the risk of fire and the costs that come along with living in a high fire-prone area. And then, of course, all 3 districts have been significantly impacted by wildfire in the last couple of years. The Berry Creek Community Service District lost a significant amount of its population due to the North Complex fire. Much of their infrastructure was damaged, and they got a lot of help from South Feather Water and Power to get themselves back up and running, but they reduced their population by about 75%. But are still operating a water system to serve 100% of the district. And so that creates some challenges. Buzztail Community Service District was impacted by the Camp Fire. They lost, I want to say, around 13 homes in the Camp Fire. And then their roadways were utilized by CAL FIRE, and that caused a lot of damage to the already like degrading roads in that area. So they're still trying to recover from the damage caused by the Camp Fire. And then Richardson Springs most recently was impacted by the Park Fire, They lost components of their, one of their holding ponds was damaged. That has since been replaced. They lost their power generation plant. So they're seeking funds to try to replace that. That plant offset about $100,000 worth of PG&E for them during the year. And so that was a huge loss for them. They continued to experience impacts due to erosion and flooding. They had some very significant flooding happen during our last rainstorm, so they're kind of struggling out there right now to find the funds to bring themselves back up to a functioning level. So overall impact of wildfire is pretty significant on these small districts. It strains their resources and highlights their existing vulnerabilities.
Where's Buzztail?
It's if you're driving up Highway 32 and you turn right off of Wilder, it's and then you kind of go down into the canyon. So it's like considered Doe Mill Ridge.
Okay,
And then the next ridge over is Butte Creek Canyon.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Berry Creek Community Service District, it's located in eastern Butte County. It's a carved out portion of the greater community of Berry Creek. They provide domestic water and road maintenance services. So their challenges include they had, like I mentioned, a significant population loss due to the North Complex fire. They have financial instability. Their primary funding is user fees, and so they're down to, I think, 17 current connections as opposed to the once, I want to say 50-ish connections that they had. And so they're collecting a lot less money and operating a treatment facility to serve 100% of the parcels in the district. And then, of course, because of their remote and rural location, the rebuilding efforts have been that much more difficult. A significant portion of their main infrastructure is located in a very rugged terrain that they don't even really have access to. And so that creates sort of a very large challenge for them that could be very expensive in the future. So the SOI, the sphere of influence determination summary is that they have a reduced customer base with limited growth potential due to the existing zoning in the area, and that their focus is on recovering repopulation to pre-fire levels and to maintain and achieve some level of financial stability. So overall, the recommendation for Berry Creek is to maintain their current sphere of influence, prioritize financial and operational improvements, and considered some sort of shared facility and resource agreement, either with the South Feather Water and Power Agency or with their neighboring Lake Madrone Water District.
So who initiated the call for a letter opposing consolidation by a lawyer? Was it,
The letter came on behalf of the Lake Madrone Water District, and
did
so
they ask for it or did the lawyer ask for it?
I don't know the detail of that.
The big difference.
Yeah. To me, the letter came on behalf of Lake Madrone. I don't know who I don't know if the board requested the letter or if the lawyer prompted on behalf of the district. I don't know the answer to that. But in my opinion, the letter highlights that we consider some form of a relationship between the two districts, which makes sense. They provide the same service. They're located within miles of each other. And from my experience, the two districts don't have any sort of relationship at all with each other. The Lake Madrone Water District is still struggling to bring their water treatment and service lines into operation. They're not operation at all at this point. And so
Well, they have to, they're looking for grants, and it seems like if they would assimilate,
yeah,
they would have a larger base to ask for grants to fix. And
Yes.
if the question raised in the letter was the way they collect their fees, that could be resolved.
definitely. Yeah, there are.
Not, to me, the letter was kind of frivolous in the sense that to me, it was like a lawyer wrote a letter to create a problem that may not exist, because consolidation, if you had to just ask the other people to tax themselves in the same manner, solution.
And the MSR highlights the challenges that would be faced in some sort of consolidation between the two districts. That it's not just an easy fix to do that, but
It could be done.
it can be done, and there's nothing stopping them from just forming some sort of agreement relationship in the interim, but until, and if we get to the point of consolidation. Okay, Buzztail Community Service District, it's located in the eastern foothills of Butte County above the Butte Creek Canyon. They provide road maintenance services and fire prevention through vegetation management. Their challenges include limited growth potential due to their geography and zoning. And they are continuing to repair their roads after damage incurred by the campfire. This district in particular probably has the most continuity out of the three. The board members are all long standing residents in the district. They hold annual meetings in which all residents of the district attend. So governance wise, this district is probably the most efficiently managed. The SOI determinations include that they maintain adequate service to the district, that they have no significant growth potential, and that they should continue to focus on long-term resilience. And the recommendation would be to maintain the current sphere of influence, improve their organizational practices, and continue infrastructure maintenance. And by that, I mean continuing to find the funding. They're basically doing continual road repair out there. So that's what they'll continue to do. Then Richardson Springs Community Service District, it's located northeast of Chico below the community of Cohasset at the historic Richardson Springs Hotel site. They provide wastewater treatment services to the hotel and surrounding facilities. Their challenges include a declining demand with limited revenue sources. And like I said, they serve what's considered a transient population. So the facility is owned by YWAM, Youth with a Mission. It's a missionary church organization. So folks come to live at the facility for a month or year period. And they take classes and they teach classes and they hold seminars and things like that. And then they move on to their mission, essentially. So it's a stopping point for them. So that makes it difficult for them to maintain much consistency. And also their financing is a little bit muddy in that they're funded solely by YWAM. They don't have any other funding source, which makes sense because YWAM is the sole owner of the parcels in the district. And so they do not adopt a separate budget outside of a line item included in the YWAM budget, which is not appropriate for them. So one of the main determinations made for them would be that they separately adopt their own budget to keep that separate from YWAM. They also experience aging infrastructure and staffing limitations. And then, of course, recovering from the park fire most recently. They also have a system that's oversized for the population that it serves. At one point, the system was developed to serve a population of about 500, which is the capacity of the Richardson Springs site. There's currently about 30 people living on the site, and so their wastewater treatment plant is definitely oversized, and they're paying to maintain that oversized system, but there's not really another alternative for them. They could not switch over to an on-site septic system because of water table issues and discharge issues, so they're kind of stuck funding that system that they have. So the determination summary is that they do maintain adequate service to the site. They have no significant growth potential because the zoning of the site is recreation, and that they should focus on financial stability and administrative requirements. The recommendation is that they maintain their current SOI, strengthen their governance, clarify their financing structure, explore alternative funding and/or wastewater solutions. back in, I think, the 80s. It's been quite some time that it was, there's a long history, but I believe YWAM bought it back, I want to say in the 80s, when they switched over from the on-site septic system to this way. They were awarded a grant to build the system.
Right.
I think YWAM was the recipient of that grant. Yeah.
A lot of fires in the area that they had another revenue source, and they used to lease out the facility for retreats to
Yeah.
various organizations. Is that still going on? Or
They
you-
do. It was explained to me that pre-COVID, they were very busy holding lots of seminars and renting it out as often as they could. And then, of course, COVID stopped all that, and the site was essentially unused, and only a few people living there during COVID time. And now they're slowly trying to recover that. And I believe even today you could rent it out and use it for some sort of conference. But that is not happening as quickly or as often as it once did. Okay, so you found in the MSR that and the sphere of update plan exactly what I explained to you, that for each of the 3 districts, I'm recommending that we reaffirm the existing sphere of influence and adopt the MSR, of course. So my recommendation today is to adopt Resolution 08-2425, approving the municipal service review and sphere of update plan, sphere of influence plan update, including the red line comments that I received from Butte County CAL FIRE, which are incorporated into the document that you have. Find that the municipal service review update is exempt from CEQA under Code Section 15306, that the sphere of influence plans update is exempt from CEQA under Code Section 15061B3, and find that the MSR update is consistent with the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act and Butte LAFCo policies. So I'm happy to entertain any comments or questions. It doesn't appear that any district representatives are here today. But let me know if you have any questions.
Questions? Any public comment on this matter? We'll close public comment. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the resolution and all the findings as presented by staff, including the incorporation of the commentary from the CAL FIRE folks.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Rust. Thank you.
Okay, 3.2 review and consideration of proposed budget for fiscal year 2025-26.
Morning, Commissioners. I'll represent this item. This is not as exciting as most of your budget meetings. I'm happy to report that the committee, am I on? The committee had met and unanimously approved the budget just in front of you. We had a very extensive discussion that day about a whole number of things. But I think the most important takeaway is with all of our budgets is, are our member agencies' contributions going to increase? And the answer is no. And this is on the 4th year in a row where we have not increased any contribution. So what that really means is we've become in a place in our budget where we're very sustainable and we can predict fairly accurately what we're going to need, revenues and expenditures, which allows us to have a very stable budget for our agencies. And frankly, the comment over the years that we always get the most is not what's in the budget, is are our contributions going to be increasing? And the answer is emphatically no. The budget will increase slightly this year, as you'll see a line item in there for transfers from Treasury cash. That's to deal with some liability issues with employment positions. So it's a one-time contribution, and that money came from our Treasury cash, which is a fund balance we keep for that exact purpose. So that worked out well. I'm happy to answer questions for you on the budget. It's, like I said, it's not complicated year in, year out, but if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments? mean, when you don't raise, there's not much to ask about. Public comment on this matter. Anybody want their fees raised? Bigs, you know? I'll close public comment.
I'll move approval of the budget.
And I have a second down here to my left. Thank you very much. You're in training now. I was in, no, call the roll. We'd be out of here quicker, but we gotta call the roll.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Rust.
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. That's Commissioner Russ, he's on the end there. Regular agenda, review and consideration of proposed fiscal reserve policy amendment.
Thank you. This item is exactly what it says. What you have in front of you is a revision, a wholesale revision to what is currently our fiscal reserve policy. And you'll see that as attachment 1. It's all strike out through the entire document. It was a very brief policy at the time. It was enacted back in 2012. It was a very good intention to start developing a fiscal reserve policy and look for a target. We are now, 12 years past that, and we have revised it and improved it. What you're looking at now is essentially the same fiscal reserve policy. How do we maintain and account for treasury cash, which is our unallocated fund balances? And the reality is we have a lot of categories, and I'll just run through them real quickly for you. But whereas the fiscal reserve policy that we had just simply focused on a target of 50% of our revenues to be maintained every year as a fiscal reserve, we've expanded that to cover categories very specifically. This was something that was brought to our attention by the county auditor as a proposal to improve our process of maintaining these funds. And it's also been reviewed by our internal auditor who does our annual audits, and that also passed muster as an improvement in identifying what's in our treasury cash. So just real quickly, what we modeled it after was a lot of other agencies who do the very same thing, which is we have categories for compensated leave, other post-employment benefits, OPEB, PERS-related items, just straight up emergencies, litigation, and then general reserves. And each one of those now, instead of, it comes with a target that we would like to adopt. And that's actually a part of the policy itself. Is, as you see, you'll look under, let's say, for compensated leave, it tells you what it's for, and then it tells you what the reserve target is. So what we're going to do is every year we bring this item as a part of the budget committee's deliberations on the budget, but we also let them know what they have in reserve, where we are vis-a-vis the targets, and whether or not those targets need to be changed. What I want to emphasize is this is not locked in stone at any given time, the targets themselves. Every year, the budget committee will meet, discuss it, and then ultimately the commission has the ability to modify or amend that in any way they wish. So you're never locked into the use of these funds as described just for the given year that they're applied. I'm happy to walk through those, but these targets add up to about a little over $1 million. And it seems a lot for such a small agency, but when you're looking at things like emergencies and things we've been through in just the last few years with wildfires and potential floods, and what the cost would that be. Litigation, for instance, is another one of those targets. We set it at 500,000. Mr. Brown will probably tell you that's on the low end of what we might experience. And we actually know examples from other LAFCos who have experienced litigation on what we consider to be somewhat fairly minor items. And San Luis Obispo, for instance, was one of those. And they ended up with 1.2 million in litigation fees for just one project. So 500,000 seems like a lot, but in legal terms, it doesn't go a long way to defend yourself. In general reserve is another 250,000. That just comes for things that they're unexpected throughout the year. So, yes, Mr.
Out on attachment 2. It needs to have another 0 added. And the only reason I bring it up is if you want these attachments to be embodied in Exhibit A, then you want that 0 there.
Fair enough. Thank you. Zeros matter.
Yeah, they do. I was looking at that.
So what I'm asking for you today is simply to amend your current policy, which is to basically strike it out and do a wholesale replacement of Exhibit 2, which just further details the exact numbers and categories for the fund balance. And your treasury cash will be reflected back in those fund balance categories. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does this cause a lack of flexibility?
No, the reality is in any given year, this is your treasury cash. You have one fund, it's not included here, which is a sphere of influence trust fund, monies we collect for another purpose, and those things are identified strictly for that purpose, and the board would have to make a definitive change to it. This is your fund balance, essentially, your treasury cash. You're just defining how it is in the budget that money is being allocated for that given year. Any given year, you can make any changes to this as you wish. You can change the amounts.
So if
You can make-
litigation came up and it cost more, we could slide the money over.
Oh, sure.
You could reallocate that to any, yes, exactly.
You answered my
So you're
question.
not locked into that specific number. It's our target for those categories.
Thank you. Any questions? Anybody? Public comment on this matter? Close public comment, wishes of the board.
Move approval.
You can second.
Second.
I got her out of the shell there. Oh. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Rust. Thank you.
Mike, Mr. Connolly, make a broad comment about this and the budget combined. And I'm particularly proud that this agency has managed to stay sustainable over the years. And with the adoption of this fiscal budget, these categories for our reserves, I'm really happy to say that we are in a very sound financial structure. Now, we can never guess what these things will happen out here, but from when I started to where we are today is like night and day. And this agency is now not only funded on an annual basis, but with the reserves and the targets you just adopted, I'm confident that you'll be able to face unknowns moving into the future with a fairly decent reserve that you can count on. And it'll also make for the stabilization of those agency budgets and our contributions over the years. So I know you don't, as from the agencies you come from, budgeting is often a very difficult and teeth pulling event, but I like to say that over the years, we have incrementally improved our situation, and the commission has made very wise decisions over that time with their budget. So you're financially very sound.
Well, the exception makes this extraordinary. We don't have unfunded pension liability, which is not very common at all.
It's true.
That's very,
Thank you for your input on this over the years because it's made this possible.
next up is public comment on items not on the agenda. Anybody from public like to speak? We'll close it. Nobody wants to. Reports and communication executive officers report.
Thank you. Just running through some real quick things here, just to highlight your normally May 1st meeting on Thursday. That's being moved to May 8th. We talked about that at our last meeting. So if you haven't already done so, you might want to reflect on your own personal calendars that May 8th is the new day. Same room, same time, just a week later. We have a nomination process and voting that's going on right now to replace 2 special district members. Those nomination forms on the ballots were attached to your report. It's a 60-day voting period that will end on May 16th, and we are hopeful that we will get a quorum of votes back by then, or else we will run this for an additional time period until such time we get a quorum of votes. So, the office question is still on there. It's just ongoing. There's not much more to talk about on that. And again, I just got word from our auditor that the financial audit is going to be to us any day now. So that'll be back on a future agenda for you to review the audit. Public agency engagement, Oroville sewer agencies. The update on that is we did have the benefit of having a meeting with the sewer agencies and the development services director a few weeks back. And it was a good open conversation. It really was simply an opportunity for those member entities through our facilitation to express directly to the department what their concerns were and how they felt things could be changed or done differently. There were no decisions made at that meeting, but it was a good opening discussion. And those meetings now are going to be routinely scheduled between the parties at hand until such time we find resolution or workarounds to the problems that exist. I'm not going to get into the details of it right now, but I think it was a progressive step forward to making sure our special districts are accounted for in the planning process. Town of Paradise Sewer Project, there's not really much to update there. It's sort of the town is still continuing, excuse me, with trying to redevelop, if you will, reimagine what their sewering situation is going to look like coming forward with the absence of the line going to the central treatment plant in Chico. I don't have anything more to add to that because it's really literally just evolving as days go by. I don't know if Mr. Bolin wants to add anything to that.
No, none, well, I just want to thank you and Shannon for your time you spent with it. I know that was not the reason for the call, but we ended up getting into that a little bit. And afterwards, they were very thankful for the insight you guys gave. So thank you for that time and it went well. So.
Great, thank you for being in the meeting. It's always a little more helpful to have an elected official there in the room sometimes. Moving forward,
Sometimes.
none of the other items have any real great updates on them, so I'm not going to spend time on those until we have something more to share. The last item on here that I want to share with you is it's about LAFCo. I'm not even sure where to even start to talk about all of this because it's been a bit of a mess, frankly. First of all, our chair, Mr. Connolly, has resigned from the board. It got to a point where decisions were just being made poorly, I guess, and Bill probably has a lot stronger words to use. And I supported him in his decision in that I didn't feel like that the rest of the board was sort of giving Mr. Connolly's comments enough attention. And he'd been on the board, probably one of the longest serving board members. And it was sad to see that so many of his comments were disregarded earlier in the process that would have avoided some problems we're having. But
They were proven true though, weren't they?
Proven true, Mr. Connolly.
Thank you.
So where we are right now is we had our executive director at LAFCo resigned from the position also at the agreement with the board, and I'll leave it at that. So we are absent of the executive director. The board has lost a few members. We've had poor participation on the part of the board. And I will say never on part of Bill. He had attended every single meeting that ever occurred, which I wish more of our elected officials would do. But frankly, they haven't been doing. So we're reorganizing the structure because several LAFCOs down south who are unhappy with a variety of things, as folks down south sometimes tend to be, they decided that they wanted to go a slightly different direction, and they indicated that they would not renew their memberships in the organization. These are Los Angeles, Orange, and San Diego LAFCOs, and San Bernardino was the earliest of the four, and they are all anticipating leaving July 1st. Now, having said that, we will work hard to bring them back into the fold so that we can maintain a 58-member structure for the LAFCO organization. I'm very confident, and I've been working really hard with my colleagues behind the scenes to reinvent this, if you will. And I'm confident we will finish and conclude and make the organization stronger. But in the meantime, we're going through a lot of rocky spots. And my term with LAFCO ends as their executive officer on June 30th of this year. So my role will cease, and hopefully I will convince Shannon that she steps into my position at the LAFCO regional officers and represent the North region. But I'll work on her for that one. We'll be back with more information. But right now, we're struggling through a process of reinventing the organization, coming up with better policies. We meet on, in fact, tomorrow, we will be driving to Sacramento for a board meeting. I'm sure Bill's happy he doesn't have to get up at 6 a.m. to drive down to do that.
I would say that being on the LAFCO board was very fulfilling till the last couple of years, and that the aforementioned members that are threatening withdrawal were probably the most intelligent, informed executive officers in the organization. and that their LAFCOs are very active, and they weren't listened to. And when we tried to point out that the commonality with the issues between them and us, made us, kind of joined at the hip, and nobody would listen because they had all these new people that had never served on the board at all. And so if you can't influence them, don't beat your head against the wall. So here I am. I said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Maybe LAFCO has a new direction in the future. Maybe it's going to change. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not going to be as effective and it's going to have a different meaning.
So I
I'm
know
not sure.
LAFCO does a lot of, pushing for legislation and stuff. Other than that, how does it affect us as our LAFCO?
So how it affects any given LAFCO, the first
Yeah.
thing is cost. We all pay a membership fee, and that membership fee is based on the population size of your county. And so there's tiers.
Which is a 3-year drama to come up with how we were going to charge people.
So one impact could
Yeah.
potentially be on your budget.
Right.
We have already budgeted that amount, and it's about $7,000 off the top of my head. It's in your budget as a line item, but so that's our annual contribution. We have been getting back annually $6,000 is a stipend from Cal LAFCO back to Butte LAFCO in exchange for my participation as the regional officer. So we're almost a push, financially speaking, unless we dropped out altogether. And of course, we'd save a few dollars, but we'd also lose out on a little bit of income. So for us, it's about the same. As Bill pointed out, some of the larger LAFCOs pay a substantially larger amount of money. San Diego, LA, Orange, just because of population base. So they're into the, $15,000, $16,000, but they also have multiple $1 million budgets. But Bill brings forth to answer your question more specifically, aside from money, which doesn't affect our LAFCO at all financially, it's the educational benefit that we get from Cal LAFCO. And as you all know, education it's as good as what you're willing to go learn. If you're participating and trying, education opportunities are wonderful and they provide you a lot of pluses. If you don't participate, it does you no good at all. And so for us, I don't want to see the organization fail because it has been instrumental in not only in my understanding and education of processes over time. This commission has been better off for it as well because we've been there helping foment those changes. I don't see that changing. I may not have a role to play through Butte LAFCO. I may have a role to play in some other capacity with Cal LAFCO, but I'm also hoping that Shannon will continue to represent us and evaluate what we're doing for it with Cal LAFCO. And I know she can speak for herself, but she has also benefited from it. And the biggest thing we benefit from, Greg, is something called a listserv, which is just an email listserv of all of the executive officers around the state. And to be honest with you, that's where the most of the value comes from the organization, because that's day in, day out, people putting up questions. And as Bill pointed out, these are not questions coming from small LAFCOs that aren't doing much. These are coming from the LAFCOs that are constantly churning, trying to reinvent, do new things, improve what we can do as a state agency and what we do locally. So like all organizations, there's always some minority of people who do the majority of the work. And then when things don't go exactly the way somebody else wants it, who's in the minority, suddenly they want to change it, but they haven't put any of the effort in. And this is what's sad about it is this is a hard topic to master. LAFCO work. It's not something that you can just get appointed to a commission. 2 weeks later, you're on the board and you're suddenly magically enshrined with all the information and knowledge that you need. It just doesn't work that way. And Bill recognized that so clearly that when we have people on there who, from their own personal LAFCO, whether that's Butte or San Bernardino, they get on there and suddenly they come to Cal LAFCO and they're starting to throw out all these ideas for change for which they have no background from real or basis to make those comments. And it's a struggle. And we're working through that. So that's a very long answer to say, personally, for our LAFCO, it's not going to really make much of a difference in terms of what's happening at the state level, aside from legislation, which is this year's not a lot of legislation that is affecting us. But moving forward, I hope we maintain that relationship and that Cal LAFCO succeeds in reinventing itself, which it will. And we continue to learn from that process and participate to the level that we can. And it takes LAFCOs like ours, and there's a handful around the state that, like I said, put forth most of the volunteering effort. So
Thank you.
it's probably not a very satisfying answer, but
No, no, it is. I mean, networking is important. And when you have a resource of people you can talk to and ask questions and bounce things off of, that's, you know, you don't feel like you're all alone then. And that does help a lot. So,
So an example of an issue is you get a new legislator, an assemblyman or a senator. He or she has a constituent, comes in, gives them their side of an issue. Hey, we'd like to build this out here, but we need water and sewer put out there. Will you run a bill for us? Circumventing LAFCO and providing service in a place that we as a community probably don't think is a good idea. It goes through, I'm gonna make it up, it goes through 3 miles of farmland and you got an island in the middle of nowhere. And so part of state LAFCO's issue is to continually educate how to use LAFCO and to manage and growth and protect farmland. The other thing I'll take away from it is phoning in is not the commitment, or Zooming in is not the commitment of showing up to a meeting on a statewide organization. It makes a huge difference when you can be with your peers, even if you disagree, you can talk, have lunch, maybe coffee or a cocktail later, you know, but it made a huge difference, and that there was more balance, and I think it got completely out of balance. And that's all I'm going to say, because there's nothing to say. I don't want to say anything bad about an individual, but we went the wrong direction. And then when you're try to influence people, hey, you went down the wrong way on the one way and you need to turn around, and they start arguing, well, we're going to change that into a two-way street. I'm already on it. It doesn't work. I'm trying to be as circumvent as I can. That's what happened. But I'd say anything that I take away to share with you is Zoom meetings are not the end all, and the commitment needed for a statewide organization should include in-person meetings.
so tomorrow's meeting is going to be instrumental in some policies. So what I intend to do, and it wasn't today, obviously, was I'm going to come back with a more
That makes
detailed
sense.
explanation of what's changing, how it's changing, so that you'll have a better idea. None of this is going to be based on a decision you have to make. The only decision any LAFCO has to make is, are you in or are you out? Several have said we don't want to be in right now until we see changes. My personal view is we should stay in and affect the change that we want. And I think we are doing that. So I'm sorry, Al, go ahead.
The full commission. I'm kind of curious, in the contents of the letter, it talks about a retreat that supposedly it took place on March the 20th. Did we have a presence there at all during that retreat?
Yes, I
Okay.
was there.
And
I wasn't there.
are you at liberty to
Bad
share whether or not any positive things were gained during that retreat as they progressed?
There was quite a bit. That was a 2-day retreat.
Mhm.
A lot was talked about. Policies were developed. Generally speaking, the board is slowly coming around to the idea that some of the things that Mr. Conley brought up were in fact accurate, and we need to address them. But really, the retreat adopted several policies that were put in place. One of them was to have regional officers. These are examples. I'm a regional officer. Cal LAFCO has 4 regions. Each region puts up one person to be that regional officer. And they're sort of the 4 lead staff people, if you will. They're your staff as a Cal LAFCO board. We want them to be more involved, because where it went off the rails to a large degree was the board started coming up with things on their own without relying on their staff to provide the continuity and recommendations. I see some chuckles on here, but this is a cultural issue, if I will. We are very fortunate. I'm very fortunate, and perhaps you might feel as fortunate as well, is that the relationship we have at this commission is, I do your work. I do the work, and it's my job to present it in front of you. And then you tell me policy wise whether that's good or bad. But I'm the guy doing it all day long, and you show up for that meeting and you learn and you provide me direction. Well, this board just decided to pass over their staff and decide they knew best without getting a lot of input. And that came to a head, to say the least. And my emphasis was you have to rely on your staff, the people that are the continuity of the organization, because the staff have been there for 10, 12, 15, 35 years. Some of these folks, as Bill pointed out, they've literally been on their commissions for maybe 2 months, 6 months before they get on the board.
Wow.
It just doesn't jive. So that's part of what came out of the retreat, was trying to reset the culture of the board is there to be responsive to the staff, and the staff is there to provide the board the information necessary to make good decisions. And we have to respect those boundaries or it just doesn't work. And so that's part of the cultural shift, to put regional officers in a more powerful, I don't want to say powerful, but a more legitimate decision-making process, and putting them as members of the board. So instead of just 16 elected officials, now it's going to be 16 elected officials plus 4 regional officers who will now sit in on every board decision and weigh in, because we felt like where it went off the rails was because they just ignored or did not ask for the advice of their staff. Kind of like we know best, and they charged forward. And Bill has been through enough of these meetings that some of these folks were just dead on stubborn. They would simply not accept a different outcome. So the retreat was about reestablishing that. We brought in two consultants who, this is what they do. It was listened to, and now policies were put in place. And I feel like perhaps now I should have provided you more at this meeting because of these questions, but I will, after tomorrow's meeting, provide you in May a much better, thorough understanding of all of the issues that came forward. If you give me that grace, I would appreciate it. But there's a lot to talk about,
Sure,
and I'd like to unpack it in words as much as I would with
sure.
speaking right now. But it was a good thing. It was definitely a retreat that had to happen, and some things had to be said and heard, and that happened. We'll see if tomorrow they enshrine what we adopted at the retreat as policy, because the full board meets tomorrow, and that's where Shannon and I will be for that meeting.
Well, good luck.
I'm confident, we'll get there.
Yeah.
It's just, we'll get there. That's all I
Well,
have for.
thanks for not, if you're not in LAFCo, you can't have a voice
Yeah.
on the change. So I mean, thank you for staying in there and fighting the battle, because
Yeah.
we could leave, but then we at the whim of whatever happens at that point.
Exactly. I mean, any way you look at it, it still exists as a statewide organization, and us to not be a member is, to me,
Right.
it's not the right move to make. But
Right.
I'll provide you a lot more details in May that you can dissect, digest and look through. That's all I have on the LAFCo item. Legislation, there is actually no legislation that's pending right now that either we're sponsoring or that we're offended by, if you will. But it's early in the process, so we have still time to be offended by somebody. When I say we, I meant LAFCo, not BLAFCO. That's all I have for this item, but I do want to make one comment if I could, and it goes back, I should have said this while Shannon was giving her presentation on the MSR, but I really like the MSR, and we've done a lot of them. And what I'm particularly proud about this particular MSR is Shannon did a remarkably good job of weaving together not just what it does or what it was good at or what it was bad, but she laid the regional context. And this is something that some LAFCos don't ever do. They stay in their lane religiously. They will not try to make any foray out into the rest of the world. And she did a really good job of explaining, for instance, in Berry Creek, Lake Madrone, there's a lot going on out there. And there's a water source. And she very clearly describes that's an asset for the county as a whole. And it's an asset for that area of the county that has recently burned. And so how do we make sure that not just does the district survive, but how do you utilize that asset in a better way? And she integrated that into other planning decisions that occur within that general foothill region. That's a great new purpose, if you will, for MSRs. And it should be there. And she did a really good job of, I think, connecting the dots. So if somebody were in the planning department or at the public works department, they could pick up an MSR. And it's not just meaningful to us LAFCO nerds. It's meaningful to other folks who have other public services that they have to integrate with service providers. So I should have said it then, but I think it's a really good MSR, and don't take away they're just bad districts that are struggling. There's a lot more in that document that lays out future options that we can't make happen, but that we can certainly put out there into the sunlight and hopefully something will grow out of it. So I want to make sure you see that is hopefully what your MSRs will continue to look like moving forward, not just doing the bare minimum, but going that extra part and trying to lay the regional part of how does it fit into the overall planning process. So now that is all I have. So, and you won't have to listen to me talk for much longer.
And I agree with that. Am I a LAFCO nerd now? I didn't know that. I just want to make sure.
4 years, in
4
4
years,
years, that's all
okay,
you needed,
okay.
Greg. You're done.
Any correspondence,
Just the letter that you saw from the Cal LAFCO board.
administration? Let's just discuss and provide direction to the executive officer on administrative matters relating to the operation of the commission.
That's for you guys to tell me something. Or not.
We're gonna move to closed session.
We don't need to conduct the closed session today. So we can skip that item on the agenda.
We're adjourned till Thursday, May 8th, right here.
Thank you.
Good meeting, everyone. Thank you.